So the transition that we've seen here is after here, we turn and we come back to here. What we're gonna always do is sit back on the rear leg so that there's no weight on the front leg, in this case the right leg. We're gonna pivot on the heel of the foot, and we're gonna turn the foot to place it in the correct position that we're gonna need when we're facing the opposite direction. So in this case, we're gonna wanna turn the foot so that it's facing the diagonal. And then shift the weight, so now all the weight is on the right leg. And then I'm gonna rise up and let my left foot essentially glide across the ground until it's in the right position. So then I can sit, step out, and I'm moving in this direction, right? So the important part is that we wanna fully commit on one leg. So if I'm here, I wanna fully commit to this rear leg, my left leg in this case. So there's no weight on the right. So when I turn, I'm not putting any pressure on the knee or the ankle. I can turn this leg as much as I want and there's no pressure on it. And then when I sit down, right, I shift the weight, sit down on the right leg again. Now there's no weight on my left leg, so it's free to move and essentially come back to where it needs to be for the proper alignment. If you don't shift the weight fully and you try to turn when there's still weight on that front foot, you're putting a lot of pressure on your knee, which is not what you want. And it's gonna prevent you from really turning. So the important part is after rising up here, you sit down and you turn, right? My arms are essentially across from my shoulders, but I'm fully on that left leg, turn, then shift, and then fully here. And now I can start again, ward off with the left arm front, and then grasp the sparrow's tail. And then press, and then seal it closed, right? And then push, and then I turn. And the turn to the 90 degrees is exactly the same idea, except that instead of having to turn all the way behind, I just need to bring my foot to the 90 degrees here. So same thing, I sit, so I was here, I sit fully onto that rear leg, I turn so that my foot is pointing to the 90 degrees, and then I shift my weight onto the left foot. So now I need to bring my right foot so that it again points in the direction that I want to face, right? But it's essentially the same thing, right? So whether I'm here, turn, and come here, or I come here, turn, and come here, same idea, right? I commit to the rear leg, place my foot so it's along the alignment that I need, shift the weight again, and then let the free foot essentially glide so that it is now in line with the direction that I want. If I want to go this way, I sit down fully on the rear leg, place my foot to the diagonal, shift fully onto the left leg, and then this right leg glides so that it's facing front. When I want to do the final turn, which is so I face back, same exact thing. I sit down on the rear leg, turn that foot so now it's pointing to the rear diagonal, shift the weight back, and then let the left foot glide until it's pointing in the right direction. So the transitions are always going to be the foot turning to the inside, and it's either going to go to a front diagonal, right? But it's essentially going to go all the way to that back diagonal, or just a little bit to that front diagonal. Right? So here, this is all the way here until I face this way. When I'm done, I'm here, my foot points this direction. When I'm done here, go all the way this way, here and here. But all you're doing is committing to one foot so that the other foot can turn to point in the direction, in that diagonal. And again, here we see, one of the 13 postures it's showing us is that the foot alignment is always going to be along one of these lines, right? Which means that if I'm facing front, my front foot is going to point in the direction of my intent, right? That's the direction that I'm going. My front foot points in that direction. My rear foot points along the diagonal of that direction. This gives me this kind of boxing stance, right? Where my hips and shoulders are actually pointing to the diagonal of where I want. So if I was boxing, I'd be in proper boxing position, right? So it gives you this kind of angled pose but my intent is forward. My front foot points in the direction of my intent. My rear foot points to the diagonal of that intent, which is why when I'm here, see, my foot is pointing to the diagonal. If I want to go this way, what I want to do is bring this foot to the diagonal and this foot to point in the direction that I want to go. If I want to go to the front, my rear foot points to the diagonal. My front foot points front. If I want to go back, I need to bring my front foot to the diagonal so I can sit here, and now my front foot points to the back. So you're always going to have that geometry. Front foot points in the direction of your intent, rear foot points to the diagonal. Of course, there's going to be changes, and we saw that already, right? Because during here, seal it closed, notice now both my feet are essentially pointing front, and then I shift immediately, now my foot is pointing rear again. So it's not that we're locked in those feet positions, but those are going to be the default foot positions. And when we're not in those foot positions, it's because we've chosen not to be. We're doing something specific or special. But otherwise, your rear foot is to the diagonal, front foot is towards front. And the one thing you want to make sure is that your feet are not too tight, right? Because you want to be able to bring your front foot all the way across and back in a straight line. If your foot are too tight, like a ballerina, you can't step back, right? And we're about to see that we're going to start stepping forward and back. So the proper alignment, front foot pointing front, with space so that you can go straight back, rear foot pointing to the diagonal. Your weight is 70% on the rear foot, 30% on the front. That's your basic kind of standing position, and everything happens from there, okay? So remember that geometry, because it will make the transition a lot easier, because all you have to remember is where's the diagonal, where's your front. If that's your front, that's your diagonal. So your foot is going to point in that direction, diagonal. Your front foot is going to point in the direction you're going. That's all you need to know. Everything else falls into place. You don't have to guess which way. No, you're going this way. Your rear foot points in that diagonal. And then you shift, and now you're here. That's it. Makes things a lot easier. So you only have really 8 directions in which your foot can point, right? Front, back, both sides, and then the diagonals to those cardinal directions, okay? So that's the transition for the first segment of the 13 postures.